Hi again, this is Carol King with Lesson 8 in the CHS seminar, and in this one we will be talking about vendors, which are trades or suppliers, and the various things that CHS has to, quote, control them. And wow, there really are a lot of things to take care of in a custom home building business, aren't there? One thing that we do need to do is control our trades and suppliers, not only to make sure that we don't overpay them, but we also want to stop running around looking up whether their liability or workers' comp insurance has expired before we pay them, or whether we have them marked that insurance is required from them. All of this so that we can produce a good general liability audit report or workers' comp audit report quickly for our insurance auditor. We also want to issue waivers of lien based on checks that we've issued to trades and track whether those waivers have been signed and returned. And we need to be able to mark whether checks paid to vendors should be included on 1099 or not, and we need to be sure we have the right info about the vendor for the 1099s that we send out. We also need a way to alert ourselves regarding other things related to the vendor, maybe something we've been told from the field about not paying or holding an amount from the vendor, or some other thing to find out before we pay them. So let's take a quick look at some of the tools developed to control those vendors. This will just be a brief introduction to the vendor control features because there are detailed tutorial videos about all of them that are available on help buttons on all of the relevant windows. So let's get started. So we're talking about vendors, so I'm going to go expand this section on the home main menu, and I'm going to say what are vendors. In CHS, all outside entities, trade contractors, suppliers, overhead suppliers, etc., that provide goods and services are referred to as vendors. They are entities that you will be paying either by check, credit card, or bank debits, and that can even include the Bank of America for service charges that they charge you, etc. Vendors will be used when entering bills to pay or paid, requesting bids, preparing purchase orders, selecting assignees for schedules, and in our previous seminar videos you've seen me selecting from various vendors. So I just wanted to get that straight. If we go to Vendors List and Setup to see a list of our vendors, I'd like to point out that there is help up here. And one of the first videos that you will see here is a much more detailed video about controlling those trades and suppliers that I am going to do right now. So you could click that once you get inside CHS and see more about controlling those trades and suppliers. So here we are with a list of all of our vendors. We can do things like look for all the B ones, all the K ones, and you'll notice that we start changing based on what is called the vendor code. There are videos about setting up vendors, how to assign the codes, what to do with the codes, how to change codes, and that's not what we're going to be talking about right now. If I go back to B and I click Big Buck, you'll also be able to see there's other contacts here that I could call and who they are, and some notes about who they are or what they are, which is mostly me and some developers in this case because we use Big Buck so much. Also, I'd like you to notice that there's types here, and let's do Show All again. And it can be very important in what we're going to talk about. Notice that there's a type called subcontractors, and you can set up and control types and then assign types to vendors. But when you're doing like the waivers of lien, you might be just sending waivers of lien to subcontractors. So you can use searches to narrow down various lists that you're going to use for those things to the type. So that's important to understand. You can do a field search. Let's just look for subcontractors just because. And now that we've done a search, we can do reports, and you'll see this is based on search results. So if you just want a vendor contact info report, and all of these can be sent to PDF, by the way, to look nicer, but this has their names and numbers, just basic names and numbers for them. Here's one that has things about notes and additional contacts that are associated and any notes that you've written about the vendors, so that's kind of handy. And these are just the subcontractors. If I do an email phone list, and it says filters are shown at the end of the report, and you can see that vendor type is subcontractor, so you get a good idea of what you're looking for. If you're wanting to check out whether you've got all the 1099 information you need for subcontractors, you might do a different kind of search. Let's do that. Field search. Let's clear the search fields, and then let's do a field search again. So let's say we just want all vendors that we've marked to get 1099s, which means we've marked them as NEC 1099. I'm going to hold down the control key, and we've marked them as rents. So let's do a search that way. And then if we do the report, and we see 1099 and other info, we can use this, send it to Excel even if we want to. There's a button for that. And we can use this to look for things that are missing. Like you can see here, some tax IDs are missing, various things like that. Although there's some good tools when doing 1099s that will show you that certain things are missing. You can do active vendors by cost code so that you would see each cost code. This is not based on search results. And this is starting with cost codes and showing all the vendors that you've assigned certain cost codes to. Let's get down here to this one, 2105, 2107, flat work. We've assigned 2 different vendors to that. And so vendors might repeat in that one, but you get a good idea that that's a search thing. The other neat thing is, let's go ahead and do a field search again and clear the search. And maybe for some reason you want a bunch of labels for all the subcontractors. And then we'll do labels. And this is based on search results. You can do name labels like that for all of them. Or you could do mail labels, and it tells you which kind of form you need. Maybe you're sending out invitations to all your subcontractors. You might have narrowed them down to be just the active ones. Notice there's active and inactive, so I do active only. And then the labels and everything would be based on the search result that are showing only the active ones and whatever else you searched for. So I just wanted you to see all of that. I'm going to show all and refresh just because. Now let's go take a look at something about setting up vendors real quick. I'm going to click the pencil edit icon for Big Buck here. I would like to emphasize in this, if you really want to be controlling and being able to do the 1099s, waivers of liens, and insurance expirations, you need to take your time out when you're setting up vendors and make sure you get all of this stuff filled in, because this is going to control who gets marked that liability is required, who should get 1099s, what bills should get 1099s, all sorts of things like that. This is very basic information over here, and if this subcontractor is supposed to get a 1099, select NEC 1099 most of the time, unless it's somebody you're paying rents to, which is probably just one person, maybe a landlord or somebody. Make sure you get their tax ID from them. You can get a W-9 form and send it out to them. You can look at information about 1099s here on the IRS website. In this case, this is a sole proprietor who operates as Big Buck Construction, but the IRS, if there's just a Social Security number here, wants their name also. So this right here is name to print on 1099s, which might be different than what you're printing on the checks, which is the vendor name over here. Now down here, there's some controls to drop in when you're entering bills. We selected our general ledger account number for job costing work in progress for this vendor. But if you remember the previous videos about setting up jobs, if you select a job, you're also at that same time selecting a general ledger account number for where you'd like job costs posted to. So if it's a custom home, it might be that 1430 work in progress. But if it's a remodel, it might be a cost of sales account. And the job will control when you enter a bill, which we looked at when we did job setup. You can also assign a department that most bills to this vendor should be assigned to. If this happens to be just an overhead like AT&T, you're probably putting a telephone expense GL here, department overhead, and no cost code because you're not paying them for job costs. But the cost code that you put in here will drop in when you start a new bill for this vendor, unless you select from a PO, and then the PO controls what cost code. And any of these can be changed when you enter the bill. This is just called defaults that will drop in, but you should pay attention to this because it can save you a lot of time. On AT&T, for a default description to drop in, I put AT&T-phone bill, and then when I'm entering the bill, it drops in that description. I don't have to type another description about the bill. Over here are some payment terms, retainage, and day due. Basically, if they offer you a 2% discount, you would put it in here, and it might be 2% due within 10 days or due by the 10th day of the month. or due at the end of the month, and this will control what due date drops in when you're entering bills. It will look to the vendor and say, what due date should I drop in? Also, retainage is a whole other subject that you will see on our detailed videos about retainage, so I won't mention that. But now, what's really important about controlling if you have to do general liability is that if this vendor is somebody, and it's usually subcontractors or trades, if it's somebody where your insurance auditor is going to say general liability insurance is required, you should check mark it. Hopefully you have a certificate. If not, you can use various things up here to request a certificate from them. Upload or view vendor docs right here. And you'll see general liability insurance certificate and a button for sending a request for the document, which we showed in that more detailed video about controlling, and it sends a comment out. It gives them a button to go to the communication portal in the email that the vendor gets and lets them upload their general liability certificate. Please watch the more detailed video about doing that part. If you're your insurance agent, we'll give you some rates about what they will charge you if this trade's insurance is expired or they're not covered, and gives you some rates. Then CHS, when you start a new bill, will pop up and say, oh, they're expired, do you want to deduct an amount for insurance from their bill? And it will supply this rate to use for deduction. Watch more detailed videos about that. This is just an info field to type something in. This is information about what you put in the company master about what is required, just in case you want to look. It's very similar for workers' comp insurance if it's required, if you need to get a certificate so that you can type in the expiration date and the rate for that workers' comp that you'll be charged. In Texas, we don't deal with that so much. And there's another place. If you want to type in various things here, anything you want, after you type it in, the next time you open this window, these various things will be in drop-down list to select from. And if you're tracking city license or a contract expired things, you can put that in so that when you start a new bill, CHS will warn you about that. So I just really did want to spend a little time on this, emphasizing put your stuff in here, especially your 1099 stuff. Because when 1099s are done, they are based on bills that have been paid or records that have been paid. And when you're entering the bill, the default 1099 will drop in. So let's just take a real quick look at how that works over here under Post New Bills. Let's just do one from scratch. And we'll select Big Buck that we were looking at. First of all, another thing that I mentioned is that you can give yourself some alerts. Type them in if you want to have your own alerts, and I'm going to show you a different kind of alert that you might give yourself when you select a vendor in just a second. Let's do a job related bill for Big Buck, and notice that it's telling us general liability is required and it's expired, so do we want to deduct some? And let's say workers' comp is expired, do we want to deduct some? It says miscellaneous expirations were found, so you can look at those to let yourself know about it. And if there were any outstanding waivers that you sent out that haven't been returned, there will be a warning about that. Over here you can see that some other fields opened up to deduct insurance, so if I put $1,000 in here, you can see that it's going to deduct for these two things. This is up to what you like to do. There's whole explanations about how all of this works for deducting and what you apply it to. Also, remember we had a 10 in for due in 10 days, so the due date dropped in, and the GL number 1430 dropped in, and CHS dropped in based on how the vendor was set up. Now remember that I told you that if you select a job like a rental property, because of how the job was set up, now the department got changed to PM, and the GL number for your chart of accounts where you're posting it got changed to rental maintenance. So whatever you set up for the vendor to control to drop things in can be changed based on what job you drop in. Also notice that NEC 1099 dropped in because that is what we put in for the vendor to say that all the bills, but maybe you're paying Big Buck this time for something that you don't want to have on a 1099. So you could change this to none if you do not want this one included on a 1099. All kinds of other videos are going to be about whether you're going over budget and various things that you can look up and at comments and activities and notes. And right here you can do a note. But I just wanted to show you that these things are happening based on how you set up the vendor and controlling the vendor. I'm going to real quick select City of Austin for the office. This is an alert that I put in that tells me that I am charging 30% to overhead, GL number 8700, and 70% to the owner department, to an owner draws GL account is what that is. So I added an activity. You can watch other videos adding a new activity. And let's just do a quick bill for an overhead thing. But remember it said 30%, so I'm putting 0.30. Let's say they charge us $125. And so that's $37.50 that's going to go to the overhead department and to utilities for our business. And so then what I can do is copy that. I know I want to change it to 70, but also that I wanted the department of owner and that I wanted to use $29.50. And then I want that to be 70% by putting a 0.70, so that those two lines add up to 125. So that's what I mean by being able to see the activities and notes, overhead, and $29.50 that I saw when I opened it. But I can also re-look at the notes if I like to right there. So that's another way to control how you're handling vendors, is to add in some various alerts to yourself that will show up as soon as you select the vendor. So let's jump back real quick. Close that, and notice when I expanded this, those various things I mentioned like vendor expirations, vendor insurance, etc. are over here. This button is for some control docs, and it's showing a contract, a W-9, a liability, general liability, workers' comp, other control docs, and those 5 expirations that you can set up, and it's showing whether I've uploaded certificates for all of those. And if I drill down, I can see what that certificate is. Let's go look at our big buck for a second. And if I take a look at W-9, I can see a control doc that I uploaded for big buck for W-9. Or I can see the general liability insurance certificate. I can see that I've uploaded one of those, etc. So there's a place there to look and see what you've uploaded for these people. You can do a search for just the ones that are subcontractors or whoever, or that need 1099s, to see if you've uploaded a W-9, that kind of thing. So if I just did this one and this one again and searched, I can see whether they have 10 W-9s or not. So maybe I want to go through all of these and send a request for their W-9. Just wanted to let you know that that's there. You will see, if I click vendor expirations, that if you look at vendor expirations all, you will see everything you set up for each vendor. It'll be in red if they are expired, and then it shows when they're last paid, and if they were last paid after the expiration date, it's going to show in red. You can do various searches. You can then do results reports of those searches. Let's say we're just looking for things about general liability insurance. Now we can see just general liability insurance, do a results report. And if I send this to PDF, I want to show you something that's very cool. Open it in PDF. And remember that Big Buck had an insurance certificate, and notice that there's a hyperlink here that if I clicked it, if I was really out on the server, not on my local machine, I would be able to see that. So you can imagine you could send to your general liability auditor a list of everybody that had general liability required, and you can do some searching for people last paid during the periods you might be talking about. So this could be narrowed down even more, and you could send this PDF to your insurance auditor without doing copies of all those certificates, and they can drill down right here and see the certificates based on a URL link. So that's a really cool, handy thing for your insurance auditor. Just wanted to let you know about this screen for controlling insurance expirations. Now, speaking of general liability, I'm going to use an old year here for the audit period that the general liability auditor told me to do. Now, if you'll notice here, we have something about, yes, expired before paid date. So notice the expire date, 2014. We paid them in 2017. So we're suddenly aware that there's somebody we need to either get a certificate from, or we're going to give the information about this onto the auditor. I did those old dates just because I'm a demo company, and you can get this audit report, give it to the insurance auditor. It shows who's insured, and it shows who's not insured, which was that JT's wallpaper. And it will, if you send it to PDF, give active hyperlinks for every certificate that you have uploaded, which I've only uploaded big bucks basically here. So you can see why the insurance auditor walks in and says, do you have those reports CHS produces? Oh great, hand me that. We have the same kind of controls and various things for workers' comp and various reports for that. I don't want to make this too long, so I just went through that very quickly. If you go to vendor 1099s, and let's just say we're doing the year 2016, just because I want to, for everything over 600, I'd like to show you that you can click this to update 1099 status on all paid bills for the year selected. What you can do is search for ones maybe that have none in the 1099 field, and then just look through those and make sure that there aren't any bills here that should be included on a 1099. Maybe you suddenly decide that somebody or another in here should be getting a 1099 that's not on here. Contractor services, I don't know what that was for, a site survey. Maybe they should be getting one. You can change the bill right there by clicking a button to NEC 1099, etc. I'm going to put it back to none, but you can see there's tools to review before you produce 1099s to look at all the bills that were paid during the year that you're looking at. So that's a real quick, handy way to take care of those. I want to just see the ones for NEC 1099. If I was doing rents ones, I would come back and select that. And notice how CHS is active in putting red bars here to show you that something is missing. If you do want a report to spot missing data that you want to print out, you can see that that's in red there, that we need that. If addresses are missing, all kinds of other stuff, they'll start showing up in red, or in red here with little bars. I am inserting something into this video on a different microphone, so it might sound just a little bit different, but I am doing this in 2023 to let you know that the IRS has changed things so that we will be exporting our 1099 information to an Excel spreadsheet that you can use for uploading to the IRS for their online reporting requirements as of 2023, or to our partner, Nelco. You can upload the Excel spreadsheet that CHS produces. You'll see that right here, that the button has changed from saying print the 1099s to making an Excel spreadsheet. And then there will be buttons about uploading that Excel spreadsheet to Nelco, our partner, who will post those, validate them, etc., send your 1099 to the IRS. Also, they will package and mail out 1099s to your recipients, etc., etc. We don't have that fully set up. We are in the process of setting it up, but I wanted to be sure that you knew that CHS is no longer going to be printing 1099s because of the changes in the IRS about needing to report your 1099s online. That's just a little blurb right now. I wanted to be sure that in seeing the previous screen where it says print, that actually now some things have changed for that. The other thing I've mentioned about things that you need to control maybe is that you need to send waivers out to vendors. So I'm doing waivers of lien. It drops in today's date because usually you're doing progress waivers on the date that you paid a check. But I'd like to show you that you can set up all kinds of waiver styles based on your state requirements. Here's a conditional progress waiver 2-page that this builder set up. You can add a new style, give it a style ID, and then you go set them up and follow all the help instructions that are right here. But notice that page 1 they set up with a bunch of verbiage they typed in, and they use these kinds of markers so that these things will drop in when waivers happen. I'm just going to do 01/01/2020 to today so we actually get some. And here's where that's important about those vendor types, and I'm going to say I just want subcontractors for whatever reason. And I'm going to select what type of waivers I'm going to be doing. I open the progress waivers, and if I do a waiver for each one of these, or decide to set up to bulk print a bunch of multiple waivers that don't have markers in them so well, but you can see how this 1-page waiver happens, brings in all the information, fills it into the body of the thing that this particular builder set up for that style. Just wanted to let you know that that's there. You really do need to use the help here and watch the various videos about waivers of lien, how to set them up, how to delete batches of them, and how to track them. So that gives you just a little peek at some of the ways that we are controlling the vendors and having various things for them that we use and paying attention to them when you set them up. Wouldn't you agree that you can get those set up? Be sure you set up the vendors correctly, and then all kinds of things will happen for you. In our very next video in this seminar, we're going to start actually really entering job cost bills, etc., and going over how you do that, how you look at them. Then we'll be talking about printing checks for them, selecting them to pay, entering various kinds of various bills. So please stay tuned and have a great day.